no matter what happens in your first few years. But this is just some theories I've developed as well as what I've experienced, I guess. But yeah, so there's a point, I think, I'm the oldest of three boys, I think, where your parents, particularly your mother, sort of says, righto, I'm developing men. The image is that, boys don't cry and they're tough and they're protectors and, they play footy and all that sort of stuff, which, I was happy to be into all that. But of course, as you're growing up, you're not thinking about all that then, you're just growing up.
Yeah.
And, you're treated a certain way. And of course, eventually it's, and I'll remember this one very clearly, that I had a conversation with my mum. I had a lot of conversations with mum, but I reckon I was about 13 or 14 and I'd come home, which was fairly usual to be on the kitchen table while mum was getting some dinner ready and preparations, that sort of thing. And I was doing my homework and I said to mum, I've been talking to some of the kids at school and they tell me that they're doing all sorts of chores and they help out with dinner and that. I said, that sounds like a pretty good idea. Would you like me to maybe give you a bit of a hand? And I remember mum, she turned and she's put the knife down. What is she doing? She turned to me and she said, Mark, you've got more important things to do than do the domestic chores around this house. You're a young man and you're doing well at school, particularly in maths and that sort of thing. And we believe that you're probably going to go and do engineering at university. So, it was all that projection. And it, obviously it filters in, and of course, a lot of this I'm only looking at on reflection. Of course, then I just went, oh, that's good. What I initially thought, of course, was, well, I don't have to do domestic chores. I'm a young bloke. They don't do domestic chores. No, I didn't have any sisters, so mum obviously did all that.
Oh, yeah.
And she did everything, absolutely everything, which wasn't uncommon, actually, particularly for all boy type of families, as I got to find out or have found out since. So, so I grew up. And so now I tongue in cheek, of course, with my wife, Fiona, we all know it's a bit of a joke, but it's sort of not either, that in some ways when I haven't stacked the dishwasher or whatever it might be that I'm expected to do, and not all the time, but sometimes I just pull that one out and say, oh, yes, but that was so long. I used to do that with my mum as well when she was alive. But there is a conditioning, I believe, and that was reinforced time and time again when I was growing up, that what my roles were as a male.
Yeah.
And then particularly, when you grow up a bit more, you start playing football and all those types of things, your sport. And, you're around younger and older males that talk in a superficial way. We never talk about how we're really feeling, or if someone's feeling a bit crook or doesn't like something or whatever. Well, you don't say that. You just, the best you do is go silent,
Yeah.
So I think now I can see in retrospect, my personality changed in a way, very much so probably through my career as a police officer. And I started when I was 19, so I was quite young.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I learned from an early, I was a bit of a talker, and I remember another distinct thing that my dad said at one stage. I was the eldest of three boys. He said, I don't know how I got you. You talk so much. You're probably meant to be a girl.
Oh, wow.
But for me, I felt so terrible. I felt like, I better not talk as much. That's what the girls do,
Yeah.
So I'd be out, particularly if I was just in all male company, I just saw. And what I did actually is that's where I probably did escape into the alcohol a lot,
Yeah.
Because that tended to dumb me down, much. And I'd he's a drinker, he's one of the boys type of thing.
Yeah. To fit in,
I got a bit of a brief from what Perry said, and you thought it might be only a very scant, so it might be a good time for you to sort of maybe fill me in a bit more if you like.
Yeah, well, that was a great introduction, because I'm all about open discussions and I'm always realizing that it does come from the communities in 12-step programs that I've been in for years, and you just feel really great to just speak openly, and I think that that's part of the well-being of the program. But this is an idea where I've picked a subject, a really good one, I think, men and women, and to talk about the roles and how each of us have had different upbringings. Like, you're one of 3 boys. That would make a contribution to who you are and how your mother was, and I'm one of 9. I've got 5 sisters and 3 brothers, and my parents fought a lot, so I feel like I've got this interest developed about conflict resolution. That was sort of the main idea, and looking at my parents fighting attracts me to, and I'm a very shy, I like to confront my fears of social anxiety, and Perry gave me the idea of having these one-on-ones because I like the idea of having a conversation between a group where you all talk. And I've had 2 years on my birthday, I invited a group, and I kind of, like, not tricked them, but they didn't really know what was going on, but we were having a big open discussion. Some of them were very like, oh, what is this? I didn't ask. So they were awkward, but now it's like, I think it'd be good, like maybe 8 or 10 of us that will rotate around, and
There, very true that you can tell when you're talking to someone that's been in a 12-step program, they're used to sharing, and honestly, and not too worried about trying to fabricate a certain outcome or whatever. As like the fellow I was just talking about, it often happens with men that the first 5 minutes or so will sort of go along, and it's all right to talk about some surface stuff. But I very quickly and very deliberately go deeper now. Because I'm not interested in all that, crap. Quite frankly, I'm interested in how they really are. People get that. They get that, but then, like you were just saying, I think they don't know what's really going on because they're not used to that sort of discussion. And then they'll sort of put themselves up and go, oh, I'm kind of like sharing some very personal stuff here, or how I feel. And I feel really strange about that, And and of course, and it's true that I have to say you get that more from men than females, I think that look, I find that I'm happily married, and I've got a wonderful marriage. All right, it hasn't always been like that. We have our ups and downs, but I just qualifying that because I think what I'm about to say, some take the wrong way. But look, I really do enjoy female company and sharing and conversing with females, because I know that I can say what's on my mind, how I really feel. They really enjoy that, So the ladies, feel very comfortable as well, because they're not used to a male being like that.
Yeah, and women are used to, guys that have a sinister motive, and they probably know very quickly with you that you're, and it might be confusing for them, like, oh, is a man like you seem typical Australian, and I think Australian men are quite sensitive, despite how tough a lot of them to be. But you will, talk about your feelings, or deep, not even about feelings, how you just go deeper into about relationships, which women are meant to be more.
Well, that's why I think particularly, I'm not the only one, of course, but I've got a good platform, because, as you say, when you first meet, you first look, you go, well, this is a typical Aussie bloke, So I'm saying to the blokes, and it's taken me a while to get comfortable with it as well. It still can be quite awkward with a lot of the men, because you can see them going, oh, I'm not too sure what's going on here. And they start to feel uncomfortable. So, but I'm working out ways.
But because you're a man too, you can cope with their struggle or the conflict,
Well, they pick up quick. They know, let's be frank, they pick up that I'm not a homosexual. They get that. right? And I'm very blokey, and I love my football and all that, so I can switch to that when I need to. But look, you're getting into another area. Look, it is a passion of mine because I believe it's at the crux of a lot of problems, serious problems that men develop and obviously take their own life because they get to a point. It's just all bottled up inside them. So the only way out is to take myself out of this by way of death. Let's be frank, that's what they do.
Yeah. Well, I got very interested. You probably don't know, but I talking to men from men's rights groups. So you're just someone who knows through experience that men need help, and you don't have any. I mean, I watched your YouTube video about mental health, but you're not trying to be a men's rights advocate so much, but you would probably identify with the things that they talk about, which is suicide, depression, holding it in.
Look,
they
I
have
do
dangerous jobs. That's also you. They have the kind of jobs that are horrific that you just deal with, I guess, and they feel like they're what's the word? They're not as important because they have, they're expendable, I think.
That's the unfortunate. That hasn't got any better with all that. But you know what, I could see that I was very different, and I was recognised for that. They wouldn't write up a lot of stuff that I did, and that's not because it was illegal or anything. It was just, a lot of the times you're dealing with, very mentally disturbed people, and I didn't realise, because you're just doing things, as you're growing up or you're growing into something. But when I took the oath at the police academy, actually, I added in my own little bit was that I would never shoot anybody, and I didn't. So I always went in. I was just talking about this other male before. So I always had the perspective, the inner perspective, if you like, the intentions that this would all end and we'd all walk away in one piece, everyone. And that always happened. That always happened, amazingly, because nearly 15 years on the pointy end. Excuse me, I went to a couple of different areas, but they were mucked up, or I mucked them up through drinking, unfortunately. That's the other side to that. But so that was their punishment, to send me back out onto the front line. It's pretty clever, wasn't it? As a man's got trouble with alcohol, obviously, and other things, I will send him out on the front line. Yeah, it's a good idea. But anyway.
So it's like a failure of the system.
That's another conversation there, isn't it? With,
but no, I feel like there is a system that's sort of part of how we all get hurt. Like I look at addicts and the kind of substances that, and a lot of them are in, lower class or lower socio. I just think, how can they deal with these substances when they're dealing with trauma and being expected to,
maybe to, I reckon anyway, in my view, to cut to the chase of what's been happening and why men are, they've got all this stuff that we've just been talking about, but where they got the extra layer, which I think is unnecessary, then it now seems to have been this push, if you like. Where it's come from, who knows? Some people might say it's from a female lobby or whatever, I don't know, that might have been part of it. But the end result is there's definitely been a push to change, for lack of better words, the masculinity of man, how we operate and how we think. And of course, at the end of the day, we are who we are. I'm not saying that, obviously, of course, men, physically assaulting their wives, well, that's not on. But it's
you look at all those micro.
I think men feel, and I can understand, because I feel it too. I think we do, as a collective group, feel like we've lost our identity somewhere along the way. I often joke to Fiona, my wife, that is, but it's partly true that, she's a very accomplished businesswoman. She runs her own business, and which is really part of, we sort of mostly are supported by that financially. But anyway, I say to her sometimes, in a way, you don't need me, you know.
Mm.
And to which she said, which is nice, that she says, "Oh no, I love you," you know, we're together. But I'm looking more on the outside, saying, well, you know, because it's look, we might even get into some contentious things, but I'll just say things as they are.
No,
I'm not saying I'm
no,
always. I'm not
I like
saying.
contentious things. Yeah.
Well, I'm not. I'm not saying I'm always completely right.
Yeah.
That might change as we go on, but no, I'm just thinking that. Yeah, so sometimes maybe if they lose their job or something, their career, like I did during the course of things, and suddenly feel like that we're not needed. And,
Yeah.
you know, probably and I know the girls, the females say, "Oh, that's silly. You know, why do they think like that?" Because
Mm.
I don't think women necessarily go down that path, and not as quickly as men do. Some of this I'm just
Oh,
thinking
yeah.
about in some ways.
No, it's great. It's
But
exactly what I would like, because something Perry said, a question he would like
yeah,
is, do men and women need each other? And I was a bit confused for a bit, but then I thought, oh yeah, I understand where he's coming from. That
look, I
women
think,
don't need the men,
I,
so
yeah, I
yeah,
think in essence we do.
yeah,
That's the way we're made for that companionship,
mm,
and also other things that go with that. But you know, now I'll qualify this with you, I suppose. This is another thing that people don't realise, particularly when they meet me. But I'm a very deep spiritual person.
yeah,
I follow God, and so a lot of when I say things, it's not necessarily. I mean, it's what I believe, but
yeah,
my wisdom, if you like, because some people say, "Oh, that's very wise," but it's coming straight out of God's word, you know, that I know
mm,
very well. Yeah, and
yeah,
I live by that, you know.
mm,
Um, so what I was alluding to was, you know, there's a part in the Bible that says, and some will be paraphrased. I'm not trying to quote it word for word, but
mm,
you know, it's not good for man to be alone. Now, it doesn't say the
yeah,
same of female. So what you know, when God
yeah,
made us, He knew that men couldn't live on their own. You know, and you
mm,
see that. You know, I mean, they might be on their own, but they're just not coping, right? You'll
yeah,
see. Yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily. Maybe the women aren't all that happy. They'd like to have some of their life for whatever reason. That's where they are at that stage of life. But they're coping. You know, they got the
mm,
house. Usually, they got the house clean. You know, they're
mm,
doing their job or whatever, and you know, things are going along. Um,
yeah.
I'm not really. I don't know what I'm trying to say about that. Probably just
Do you
that.
mean when women are alone? Like, because yeah, you're saying when you see men alone, they're not
Yeah,
coping.
it's not. You know, I think you're getting this. That I'm not trying to say it's black and white,
Yeah,
but
it's what you observe.
it's
Yeah.
what I observe, what I believe.
Mm,
I know myself. I don't choose ever
mm,
to live alone. You know, that may happen. I don't know, but that wouldn't be my choice.
mm.
Because I know I need people around. You know, I'm not a loner.
Yeah, so it's seems not purely, but your personality is very social or very,
Mm,
yeah, extroverted or yeah,
it
you're
is, but
comfortable socially, yeah,
yeah, but I think everybody's
verbally, yeah.
people around. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot
yeah, there's
in
a
there.
lot of conditioning. Where you go with it, I don't know. Look, um,
Yeah,
you know,
well, just hearing from
I
people.
think the
Yeah.
legal system is definitely skewed, you know, towards protecting the female,
Yeah.
and a sort of along the way somehow men have lost some rights along the way. But you know what? Before you start sort of looking at it, pulling that apart, I mean, I understand. Obviously, I've had experience as a
Mm.
policeman as well with that
Oh
sort of
yeah.
thing. That
Mm.
you know, females need protecting from time to time,
Mm.
particularly from men they're living with. You know, so
Yeah.
they've intervention order system and all that sort of stuff. But really, at the moment, and I know where it's been abused here and there because I know of cases where. So
Mm.
basically, all a woman has to go to a police officer and say, "Look, I feel unsafe with the man I'm with," and
Mm.
they'll give it and the intervention was very powerful because without a court hearing or anything, it's served on the male and he has to leave his residence and basically is
Mm.
on the street. So
Yeah.
that's where I see it's a great, you know, it's a very black and white solution to a very, complex issue, and
I think being a policeman is very, it's another layer of insight that has to be valuable. Like, I wanted to ask you, if you go to a domestic violence, is it obvious to you whether, the man is a black and white predator who needs to be taken out, or, can the partner make it look like he's, just an abuser, or sometimes domestic going both ways, and they've
well,
mad.
what? Yeah, it's interesting because I'm just thinking about that as you say it. It's not that hard. Well, with experience in reading people, eventually, I wouldn't say it was easy, but it's not that hard, because mostly it's driven by, let's say, the perpetrator, and it usually is the male. If it came to a toss up, well, we'll err on the side of protecting the female for sure. But usually the blokes talk themselves into it, I have plenty of examples of the one that comes to mind quite often is, and this is from quite a while ago, of course, but of course I remember stuff. But this couple was sort of middle aged, maybe even they probably were middle aged, maybe a little younger, but I was meaning more middle class or even upper middle class in a reasonably nice area, not a prestige area, but a reasonably nice area in the outer suburbs of Melbourne, and must have been an evening, I suppose. There were, neighbours, heard a lot of noise and that sort of stuff. And anyway, as soon as we went into the place, there was just crap everywhere, and they'd been throwing stuff around, and there was grog everywhere. So they'd been throwing at each other or whatever. And, as we would normally do, separate them, and one talks to the male one, if possible. He was actually quite violent as soon as, we ran into him. He was, quite aggressive and obviously affected by alcohol. And anyway, I think my partner did, he slowed him down enough to sort of sit him down, and I was happy they were sort of talking, and I but as soon as I laid eyes on I guess she was the wife, she had this deep bruising welts on either side of her neck. So it's pretty obvious she hadn't herself. And she said, he strangled me. He was trying to kill me, like she thought he was going to. So, but my approach is always to let them talk themselves into it. And you sort of say, how could that be? I don't know. It's just a technique I learned along the way, probably in sync with my personality, perhaps, as you can see. People are a bit baffled when you have someone talking so much, but I could listen and read things all the same. So the more people get comfortable, and start doing things and saying things. So that's what he said, something like eventually, well, the bitch deserved it and whatever. And I said, what, really? And anyway, then he wasn't that, he was clever. So he sort of, I've started to say the wrong thing, I'll be quiet. But anyway, this was just, as my memory serves me correct, it was really just the start of the Family Violence Act and Domestic Violence Act, so that whole intervention order thing. Before that wasn't there, say the early 90s, I think, of this. So when we went back to the station, we'd separated them, and of course, spoke to her. Might have even got a statement at the time, and filled us in the detail, and he tried to, and obviously pretty severe because she was bruised, But all during the interview, I was trying to encourage him to just tell us exactly what happened, because obviously something had happened, but it was better for him if he sort of started cooperating. But he wouldn't, and so eventually, and this is, I'm getting to, I didn't anyway, I didn't necessarily want to lock people up, but I kept on telling him if he didn't cooperate, we're probably going to have to lock you up for the night. You can't do that. And I said, well, we can, and I explained it, the sort of process in place now. And but anyway, cut a long story short from that, it wasn't until, we got because by the stage it was late at night, we had to get an after hours justice of the peace in, and he heard the whole story, heard him, and said, all right, well, you're a risk, because he kept saying, oh, where are you going to go, mate? Oh, I'm going to go I'm going to go home with my wife. No, you can't do that tonight, at least go and stay somewhere else. No. So anyway, he was locked up. So I guess, I don't know whether, I think that was, that was.
It's a good,
So sort of, look, that's changed a lot. It is very black and white now for the police. I know that they've got it's all set down in black and white legally, and basically it's sort of like you'd have to have a really good reason to not go down the process of getting an intervention order and the male being turfed their dwelling, because at the day if something happens, they can say, well, we did everything we could do that the Lord allowed us to do to, keep everything safe and peaceful.
Well, that's great, Mark.
That's a severe one, but there was a lot lesser.
Yeah.
Where the male might just go and stay at his mate's place for the night or something like that. It wasn't that severe, and then they maybe have a chat in the morning or on the phone or something and decide what they want to do, and if she wants to, the wife or girlfriend or whoever wants to take it further. But I would say that the tightrope we walk, I guess, is because it all comes down to, it's a bit like your motivations. Why do you get sober from drinking alcohol? Well, first of all, you got to identify that there's actually a problem drinking alcohol, and that sounds that sounds very strange to, as we call them, the normies. Outside the 12-step, they go, "What are you talking about? Of course you got a problem. Look what happens when you drink."
Yeah.
But like I know for me, for 40 years, I didn't think.
You need the drink, so your brain has to tell itself, how do I keep this thing that's helping me, or that I think's helping me, because I can't deal with the alternative being sober or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I'll stop the recording now, and because it's going over the time that people start whinging that it's too long. So I'd love to talk.
They're watching
or we'll do a couple more together, and okay, I'll just.
I think it comes back to